Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. This is not a prediction. This is not speculation. This is a live report from the front lines of a market fracture that is happening right now, at this very moment, as I speak these words to you. My name is calling from the eye of the financial hurricane that will reshape the precious metals market forever. We are now exactly 36 hours away from the point of no return. 36 hours until the entire facade of paper silver pricing collapses under its own mathematical impossibility. 36 hours until the world wakes up to discover that there is no longer one silver price. There are 3 silver prices, and the gap between them is not shrinking. It is exploding wider with every passing hour. Let me say that again because this is the single most important thing you need to understand. There is no longer a unified silver market. The market has fractured. It has split. It has broken into 3 completely separate realities, each one operating in its own universe with its own price discovery mechanism. The paper silver world in New York says $75 per ounce. The physical silver world in Shanghai says $84 per ounce. And the retail physical world, where you actually buy silver, says $85 to $92 per ounce. This is not a spread. This is not a premium. This is a complete rejection of the paper pricing mechanism by every single participant who actually needs physical metal. The industrial buyers have rejected it. The sovereign wealth funds have rejected it. The retail stackers have rejected it. And now, in the most dramatic proof yet, the futures traders themselves are rejecting it through a mechanism called backward rolling. They are paying extra money, absorbing transaction costs, and moving their positions from distant months into immediate delivery months. Why would anyone do that? Because they know something that the mainstream media is not telling you. They know that if you do not have the metal in your hand within the next 72 hours, you may never get it at the price on your screen. The bridge has been burned. The arbitrage is dead. And New York has become an island of paper floating in a sea of physical reality that it can no longer touch. Let me take you through the 3 parallel universes that silver now inhabits. 3 completely different markets, 3 completely different prices, and 3 completely different groups of participants. This is the evidence that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that we are witnessing the death of paper silver pricing. In Shanghai, at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, silver closed its most recent session at $84.55 per troy ounce. $84.55. Write that number down. Remember that number, because that is the price that the real world is paying for real metal. That is the price that Chinese battery manufacturers are paying. That is the price that solar panel conglomerates like LONGi and Jinko Solar are paying. That is the price that the strategic reserve managers are paying. These are not speculators. These are not hedge funds playing with leverage. These are industrial giants who need millions of ounces of silver to keep their assembly lines running. They need it for solar cells. They need it for electric vehicle batteries. They need it for the entire renewable energy infrastructure that China is building at breakneck speed. And they are paying $84 per ounce because they know what is coming. They know that in less than 72 hours, China's export restrictions on silver will become fully active law. They know that once those restrictions are in place, the silver that leaves Shanghai today will never be available for arbitrage back to London or New York. They are front-running the export ban. They're panic buying before the vault doors close forever. This is not speculation. This is documented fact. The Shanghai Futures Exchange has seen its registered silver inventories drain by 84 metric tons in just 48 hours. That is 2.7 million troy ounces vanishing into private hands in 2 days. This is the price of reality. This is the price of metal that you can actually touch, weigh, and use in manufacturing. $84.55 per troy ounce. In Dubai, in London, in Zurich, in the honest dealer-to-dealer physical market where vaults actually deliver metal against payment, the price is different, but not by much. The physical market is trading at approximately $79.61 per troy ounce. This is still a massive premium over the paper price, but it is slightly below the Shanghai panic price. Why? Because these are transactions where metal is changing hands between sophisticated parties with established vaulting arrangements. They are not paying the panic premium that Shanghai is paying, but they are absolutely, categorically refusing to accept the New York paper price as legitimate. $79.61. That is the price of silver in the adult world, where counterparties demand actual delivery. That is the price where you cannot simply roll your contract forward and pretend you will settle later. You pay, you get metal, or the transaction does not happen. This is the honest market. This is what silver actually costs when both parties expect physical settlement within 48 hours. And then we have New York. We have the COMEX. We have the paper market where the spot price ticker on your screen says $75.15. $75. Not $79. Not $84. $75. This is the price that gets quoted on Bloomberg. This is the price that gets reported on CNBC. This is the price that the exchange-traded funds use for their net asset value calculations. And this price is a lie. It is a mathematical fiction. It is a zombie number that continues to walk and talk even though it has no connection to physical reality. Let me show you the math that proves this is impossible. Take the Shanghai closing price of $84.55. Subtract the New York spot price of $75.15. You get a difference of $9.40 per troy ounce. $9.40. Now calculate that as a percentage of a New York price. 9.4 divided by 75.15. That equals 12.5%. 12.5%. There's a 12.5% spread between the paper price in New York and the physical price in Shanghai. Let me repeat that. 12.5%. In a normal functioning market with free arbitrage, spreads of this magnitude cannot exist for more than minutes, maybe hours at most. Traders would immediately buy New York at $75, ship the metal to Shanghai, and sell at $84, pocketing $9 per ounce minus shipping costs. That arbitrage would force the prices to converge almost instantly. But that is not happening. Why is that not happening? Because the arbitrage is dead. It is dead because of timing. It is dead because of China's export licensing requirements. And it is dead because the metal in New York vaults is not available for delivery at anywhere near the quantities the market would demand. The bridge between New York and Shanghai has been burned. The connection has been severed. New York is an island of paper, and islands of paper sink when the tide of physical demand rises. Let me explain this concept one more time in plain language because it is absolutely critical to understanding why the market has fractured. Arbitrage is supposed to work like this. You see silver selling in market A for $75. You see silver selling in market B for $84. You buy 1,000 ounces in market A for $75,000. You transport it to market B. You sell it for $84,000. You profit $9,000 minus transport costs. Easy money. Risk-free money. This is what keeps markets connected. This is what keeps prices uniform across geographies. But here's the problem. To execute this arbitrage trade today, you would need to buy silver on COMEX, take physical delivery, arrange export from the United States, ship it to China, clear it through Chinese customs with a new export licensing regime, and deliver it to Shanghai before the price spread closes. That process takes weeks, maybe months under the new regulatory environment. And the export ban activates in 72 hours. You cannot get the metal out of the United States and into China in 72 hours. It is physically impossible. Therefore, the arbitrage cannot happen. Therefore, the spread can persist indefinitely. Therefore, New York and Shanghai can trade at completely different prices with no mechanism to force them back together. The bridge has been blown up. The arb is dead. And the paper price in New York is now floating free from physical reality, untethered, drifting further and further away from the real cost of acquiring metal. This is what a broken market looks like. This is what happens when paper and physical decouple. And we are watching it happen in real time, right now, today. Now, let me show you the smoking gun. Let me show you the single data point that proves beyond any doubt that something catastrophic is happening beneath the surface of this market. I'm talking about the COMEX delivery notices. These are the formal demands for physical metal delivery against futures contracts. In a normal speculative market, almost no one takes delivery. Traders roll their positions forward month after month, year after year, never actually demanding the metal. They're trading exposure to the silver price, not trading silver itself. Yesterday, just 48 hours ago, we saw 69 delivery notices filed for the January 2026 contract. 69 contract times 5,000 ounces per contract equals 345,000 ounces. That is a small number. That is a normal number for what is technically an off month for delivery. January is not a traditional COMEX delivery month. March, May, July, September, and December are the big delivery months. So 69 contracts demanding delivery in January? That is routine. That is background noise. But today, everything changed. Today, according to the official CME data published this morning, there were 6,690 contracts demanding delivery for January 2026. Let me spell that out. 6,690 contracts. Multiply that by 5,000 ounces per contract. That equals 33.45 million troy ounces of silver demanded for immediate physical delivery. Let me give you the comparison one more time so the magnitude sinks in. Yesterday, 345,000 ounces. Today, 33.45 million ounces. Calculate the ratio. 33,450,000 divided by 345,000. That equals 96.9 times. Nearly 100 times more delivery demand in 24 hours. Not a 10% increase. Not a doubling. A 97-fold explosion in delivery notices. This is not a market. This is a bank run. This is a stampede. This is the futures market screaming at the top of its lungs. We do not trust the paper anymore. Give us the metal. Give it to us now. When you see delivery demand spike like this, it means the people who are long silver futures contracts no longer believe that holding a futures position is equivalent to owning silver. They want out of the paper system. They want the actual metal in their vault. Why would they want that? Because they know what we know. They know the Shanghai inventories are draining at 4% per day. They know the Chinese export ban takes effect in 72 hours. They know that Federal Reserve is pumping emergency liquidity into banks at levels we have not seen since the COVID crisis. They know that something is breaking, and they want to be holding metal, not contracts, when the system finally snaps. Think about the psychology here. These are not small retail traders demanding delivery. You cannot take delivery of a COMEX contract unless you are an approved vault account holder with significant financial backing. These are institutions. These are banks. These are large commodity trading houses. And they are collectively saying, we sold you contracts at $72, at $73, at $75. We thought you would just roll them forward like everyone always does. But you are not rolling them forward. You are demanding the metal. You are demanding 33 million ounces. And we have to find that metal somewhere. Where are they going to find 33 million ounces in the middle of a global supply crunch? Where are they going to find it when Shanghai is offline for export? Where are they going to find it when premiums in Dubai are already at $8 over spot? They are trapped. They are absolutely, mathematically, physically trapped. This is the mechanism that breaks a bullion bank. When you are short silver futures, you have promised to deliver metal at a specific price. As long as the longs keep rolling their contracts forward, you never actually have to deliver. You just collect the spread, manage the position, and life is good. But when the longs suddenly demand delivery en masse, you have two choices. Choice 1, deliver metal from your own vaults. But if you do that, you deplete your inventory, and every other client who has unallocated silver accounts with you starts to panic. They start demanding their metal too. And suddenly you have a full-scale run on the vault. Choice 2, go into the open market and buy metal to fulfill the delivery obligations. But the open market is trading at $84 in Shanghai and $79 in Dubai. You sold the contract at $75. You're taking a loss on every single ounce you buy to deliver. Let me make this concrete with an example. Imagine you are a bullion bank and you are short 1,000 COMEX silver contracts. That is 5 million ounces. Your clients suddenly demand delivery. You need 5 million ounces immediately. You cannot wait. You cannot delay. The delivery rules are binding. So you call your contacts in Dubai. They quote you $79. You sold the contracts at an average of $75. You are paying $4 per ounce more than you received. $4 times 5 million ounces equals $20 million in losses on a single batch of deliveries. And this is happening across the entire banking system right now. This is why the Federal Reserve repo facility saw $74.6 billion in borrowing on December 31st. The banks need cash to cover these losses. They need cash to buy metal at inflated prices to fulfill delivery obligations they never thought they would have to fulfill. They are bleeding capital, and they are running to the Federal Reserve's emergency lending window to stop the hemorrhaging. If yesterday's $74.6 billion in Federal Reserve standing repo facility usage was the warning shot, today's situation confirms that the bleeding has not stopped. It has accelerated. Let me be very clear about what the standing repo facility is and why its activation at these levels is a 5-alarm fire. The standing repo facility is the Federal Reserve's emergency backstop for banks that cannot find sufficient liquidity in the private market. Banks can bring high-quality collateral, usually Treasury securities, to the Fed and borrow cash overnight at a preset rate. This facility exists for moments of stress. It exists for year-end window dressing when banks need extra liquidity for regulatory reporting. It exists for unexpected shocks. Under normal circumstances, usage is zero or very minimal. Maybe $5 billion. Maybe $10 billion on a high-stress day. On December 31st, 2025, banks borrowed $74.6 billion through this facility. That is the highest level since the March 2020 COVID panic. $74.6 billion. Let me say that number again. $74.6 billion in emergency liquidity provided by the Federal Reserve to the banking system. Now here's what makes this absolutely terrifying. That $74.6 billion was borrowed for year-end, meaning it was due back on January 2nd when markets reopened. Most of it has been repaid as of yesterday. But the need for it tells you everything. Banks needed $74 billion of emergency cash to close out their books on December 31st. Why? What were they paying for? What obligations were they meeting that required $74 billion of liquidity that they could not find in the private market? Let me connect the dots. We know that 33.45 million ounces of silver delivery notices are outstanding for January. At current physical market prices of around $79 per ounce, that is $2.64 billion worth of silver that needs to be delivered. But remember, the banks sold those contracts at lower prices. Many were sold at $72, $73, $74. So the banks are not just paying $2.64 billion for the metal. They're paying more than they received when they sold the contracts. Let us assume an average loss of $5 per ounce on the delivery obligations. $5 times 33.45 million ounces equals $167 million in direct losses just on this month's silver deliveries. Now expand that across gold deliveries, across copper deliveries, across all the commodity positions where the banks are caught short and clients are demanding physical delivery. Now add the losses on interest rate swaps from the recent volatility in yields. Now add the margin calls from equity positions. Now add the cost of maintaining market-making operations when volatility explodes and bid-ask spreads blow out. Suddenly, $74.6 billion does not seem like enough. Suddenly you realize that the Federal Reserve is using the repo facility as a fire hose to put out a multi-front fire that is consuming bank capital in real time. We have reports, credible reports from sources inside the commodities trading desks, that specific banks are in acute distress. JP Morgan Chase, which is one of the largest players in the COMEX silver market, has increased its loan loss reserves by approximately $400 million in the past week. $400 million. You do not reserve $400 million because you think maybe there might be a problem someday. You reserve $400 million because you know the losses are coming and you need to prepare your balance sheet for the hit. Citibank is reportedly seeing unprecedented demand for physical delivery against its client silver accounts. Clients who have held unallocated silver positions with Citibank for years are suddenly demanding allocated metal. They want their specific bars in their specific vault with their specific names on the storage receipt. Citibank is telling these clients that fulfillment will take administrative time. Administrative time. That is bank code for, we do not have your metal in our vault right now, and we are scrambling to find it. Bank of America has extended its delivery timelines for physical silver from the standard 2 days to 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Why would a bank need 2 weeks to deliver silver if they actually had the silver sitting in their vault? They need 2 weeks because they have to source the silver. They have to call dealers in London, in Zurich, in Singapore. They have to arrange transport. They have to pray that someone will sell the metal at a price that does not completely destroy their margin on the transaction. Now think about the timing of this liquidity drain. Today is January 10th, 2026. Markets are open. Trading is active. Banks are trying to manage their positions in real time. And yet the Federal Reserve felt compelled to keep its standing repo facility open and available for any bank that needs emergency liquidity. This is not normal. In a normal January, banks are calm. Year-end is behind them. Books are clean. They are planning for the new quarter. But we are not in a normal January. We are in a January where the largest commodity exchange in Asia is bleeding inventory at unsustainable rates. We are in a January where China is activating strategic resource export controls. We are in a January where futures traders are demanding physical delivery at 100 times the normal rate. This $74.6 billion repo operation is the invisible proof of the crash. The price on your screen says $75, so you think everything is fine. But the Federal Reserve balance sheet says $74.6 billion, which says the building is on fire. They're using a money hose to beat back the flames so that the public does not see the smoke. But the smoke is there. You just have to know where to look. You're looking at it right now. You are watching it in real time. And you have 36 hours to decide which side of this trade you want to be on when the smoke becomes visible to everyone. While banks in New York are burning through cash, trying to plug holes in their delivery obligations, the situation in Shanghai has accelerated from a vacuum operation to full depletion. If you thought the inventory drain we discussed earlier was alarming, the updated data from the Shanghai Futures Exchange is beyond alarming. It is apocalyptic. The Shanghai Futures Exchange maintains 2 categories of silver inventory, registered and eligible. Registered inventory is metal that is available for immediate delivery against futures contracts. Eligible inventory is metal that is stored at exchange warehouses but not currently warranted for delivery. For our purposes, we care about registered inventory because that is the metal that matters for contract settlement. As of 48 hours ago, registered silver inventories at the Shanghai Futures Exchange stood at approximately 755 metric tons. That number was already historically low. Analysts were worried, but they assumed it was a temporary drawdown that would reverse when new supply arrived. That assumption was wrong. As of this morning, registered silver inventories at the Shanghai Futures Exchange have fallen to 727 metric tons. That is a drop of 28 metric tons in 48 hours. Let me convert that to ounces so you understand the scale. 28 metric tons equals approximately 900,000 troy ounces. 900,000 ounces withdrawn from the Shanghai vaults in 2 days. But it gets worse. This follows the 84-ton withdrawal we discussed earlier. When you add it all together, the Shanghai Futures Exchange has seen its registered silver inventories decline by approximately 112 metric tons in the past week. 112 tons. That is 3.6 million troy ounces. Now let me show you the math that should terrify every central banker and every industrial silver consumer on planet Earth. The Shanghai Futures Exchange currently holds 727 metric tons of registered inventory. It is losing approximately 16 tons per day at the current rate. 16 tons per day. 727 tons divided by 16 tons per day equals 45 days. 45 days until the Shanghai Futures Exchange is mathematically empty. Zero silver. None. Nothing in the vaults. But wait, it gets worse, because markets do not go to zero in a straight line. They break. When inventories fall below a critical psychological threshold, usually around 500 tons for Shanghai, panic accelerates. Buyers realize there will not be enough for everyone, so they double their orders. They triple their orders. They pay any price to secure supply before the vault locks close forever. The drain becomes exponential. We are watching the beginning of that exponential curve right now, today in real time. If the current rate holds, Shanghai is empty by late February. If the rate accelerates, which it will, Shanghai is empty by the end of January. And once Shanghai is empty, once the largest physical silver market in the world has zero inventory, what do you think happens to the global price? What do you think happens when the solar panel manufacturers in China cannot get silver for their production lines? What do you think happens when battery makers have to shut down assembly lines because they cannot source enough silver for their electromaterials? You must ask yourself, who is withdrawing this metal? Who is taking 112 tons of silver out of the Shanghai vaults in 1 week? This is not retail. You do not withdraw 112 tons in the form of coins and small bars. This is institutional. This is state level. This is strategic reserve accumulation. We know from multiple sources that Chinese government entities are actively building silver stockpiles ahead of the export restriction activation. We know that battery manufacturers like CATL and BYD are securing 6-month forward inventories. We know that solar panel giants like LONGi and Trina Solar are buying aggressively to ensure they have enough silver to maintain production dominance while the rest of the world starves for supply. These are entities with insider information. They know exactly how strict the export licensing regime will be. They know that once the restrictions activate, silver will not leave China. So they're taking metal now while they still can, and they're taking all of it. This creates a horrifying feedback loop for the West. Every ounce that leaves the Shanghai vault is an ounce that can never be arbitraged back to London or New York. It is an ounce permanently removed from the global float. It is an ounce locked inside Chinese sovereign borders forever. Western banks, the ones we discussed who are short millions of ounces, were counting on this metal. They were hoping that maybe, possibly, China would export some silver to cool global prices. But China is doing the exact opposite. They are locking it down. They're building a wall around their domestic supply. And they are leaving the Western banks to drown in their short positions with no lifeline. Every ton that disappears from Shanghai is a ton that cannot save JP Morgan, cannot save Citibank, cannot save Bank of America. The metal is gone, and it is never coming back. The banks are watching the inventory data every single day, and they are sweating. They are absolutely drenched in panic sweat because they need that metal, and it is evaporating before their eyes. This is not a trade that went wrong. This is a systemic trap that is closing shut with the entire Western banking system caught inside. The inventory drain is not just happening at the exchange level. It is cascading down to the corporate level. The panic has spread from government vaults to factory floors. And when industrial giants start hoarding raw materials in 6-month quantities, you know the system is on the verge of collapse. For the past 20 years, global manufacturing has run on a system called just-in-time inventory management. It is a beautiful system when it works. You do not hold inventory. You do not pay for storage. You do not tie up capital in raw materials sitting in a warehouse. Instead, you order exactly what you need for this week's production, and the truck arrives at your loading dock exactly when the assembly line needs it. It is efficient. It maximizes cash flow. It minimizes waste. But just-in-time has one fatal flaw. It relies on a single critical assumption. You can always get what you need at the expected price when you pick up the phone. That assumption died this week. We have received credible reports from Asian supply chain sources that Samsung Electronics has executed emergency procurement orders to secure 6 months of silver supply in advance. 6 months. Let that sink in. Samsung typically holds maybe 2 weeks of raw material inventory for their electronics manufacturing. They are the epitome of just-in-time supply chain management. And overnight, they decided to hold 26 weeks of inventory instead of 2 weeks. Why would Samsung do this? Because they see the same data we see. They see the 112-ton drain from Shanghai. They see the Chinese export ban activating. And they know, without silver, they cannot manufacture a single printed circuit board. Not one. Silver is essential for their high-end smartphone displays. It is essential for their semiconductor packaging. It is essential for their camera modules. Without silver, the entire Samsung Electronics empire stops producing. The factories go dark. For Samsung, paying a premium of $5 or even $10 per ounce does not matter. The cost of silver is a rounding error in the cost of a smartphone. A flagship Galaxy phone costs $800 retail. The silver content is maybe $2. But the cost of zero silver is bankruptcy. It is supply chain failure. It is losing market share to competitors who secured their supply. So Samsung is paying any price necessary to lock in 6 months of inventory. They are pulling 6 months of demand off the market today. They are effectively removing millions of ounces from global supply availability in a single corporate procurement decision. We have seen internal memoranda from Tesla's procurement department, specifically related to their solar roof division and their battery manufacturing segments. These memos flag Tesla's current silver inventory levels as critical. The memos reportedly authorize procurement managers to pay above spot price to secure immediate physical delivery. Read that again. Tesla is telling its buyers, ignore the spot price, just get the metal. When a company like Tesla tells its procurement team to ignore spot price, the spot price becomes meaningless. Tesla does not care if COMEX says $75 or $85. They care about getting physical metal into their factories so they can keep building battery packs. And if that means paying $80 when the screen says $75, they will pay $80. Because the alternative is production halt. And production halt means missing delivery targets. And missing delivery targets means Elon Musk screaming at executives and investors dumping the stock. China controls 80% of global solar panel manufacturing. We know this. It is not disputed. We also know that the new Topkin solar cell technology uses 50% more silver per panel than the older PER technology. And we know that Chinese manufacturers are rapidly transitioning to Topkin to improve efficiency and compete in the premium segments of the global market. What do you think Longi is doing right now? What do you think Jinko Solar is doing right now? What do you think Trina Solar is doing right now? They are standing in line at the Shanghai Futures Exchange delivery window. They're the ones demanding the 84 tons we talked about. They're the ones draining the vaults. They're securing their silver supply before their own government locks the door. And they are ensuring that while the rest of the world starves for silver, China will have enough to dominate the global solar market for the next decade. This is not just about silver prices. This is about the energy transition. This is about industrial supremacy. This is about China using export controls as a weapon to secure permanent advantage in the technologies that will define the 21st century economy. And silver is the choke point. Control the silver, control the solar industry. Control the solar industry, control the energy transition. Control the energy transition, control the future. But the gap between paper price and physical reality is not just in corporate boardrooms and exchange vaults. It is happening on Main Street. It is happening at your local coin shop. It is happening at the major online bullion dealers. And if you think you can buy silver at $75 because that is what the ticker says on CNBC, I invite you to try. Go ahead. Try. You cannot. Let us start with the most popular silver bullion coin in the United States, the American Silver Eagle. This is a 1-ounce coin minted by the United States Mint, backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government. It contains exactly 1 troy ounce of 0.999 fine silver. In a rational market, this coin should trade at spot price, plus a small premium for minting costs. Historically, that premium has been $2 to $3, maybe $4 in high-demand periods. Today, right now, if you want to buy American Silver Eagles from a major dealer like COMEX or JM Bullion, you are paying approximately $85 to $92 per coin. Let me repeat that, $85 to $92. The spot price is $75. That means the premium is $10 to $17 over spot. The premium is not $2. It is not $3. It is $17. That is a premium of 22% over the paper spot price. Does that number sound familiar? Because $85 is almost exactly the price that silver is trading for in Shanghai. $84 in Shanghai. $85 to $92 at your local dealer. The physical market has already repriced silver. The paper market in New York is the only entity that has not admitted it yet. Let's look at Canadian silver maple leafs. Another 1-ounce government-minted coin, 0.9999 fine silver. Historically, maples trade with a premium of $2 to $3 over spot. Today, the premium is approximately $10. $10 over a $75 spot price means you are paying $85 for a maple leaf. Once again, we arrive at $85. The same price as Shanghai. The same price as Silver Eagles. The physical market is speaking with one unified voice. And that voice is saying, silver is not $75. Silver is $85. If you want metal, pay $85. If you want paper, look at your screen and dream. Even generic silver rounds, which are just plain 1-ounce silver discs with no collectible value, no government backing, just raw silver, are trading at approximately $8 over spot. Normally, generic rounds trade at maybe 50 cents to $1 over spot. They're the cheapest way to buy silver by weight. Today, they are $8 over spot. That is an 800% increase in the premium for generic physical silver. Why would dealers charge $8 over spot for a generic round? Because dealers know they cannot replace their inventory at $75. They know that if they sell you a round today for $75, they will have to pay $80 or more to buy another round next week. So they are pricing for the future. They are pricing for scarcity. They are pricing for the reality that the paper price is fake and the physical price is what matters. Dealers are not stupid. They are on the front lines of this market. They see the bid-ask spreads blowing out. They see the wholesalers pulling inventory offline. They see the delivery delays extending from 2 days to 6 weeks. They know what is coming. So they're doing what any rational person would do. They're raising prices to reflect reality, and they're conserving inventory for the clients who are willing to pay the real price. We are hearing reports that major wholesalers, the ones who supply the big online dealers like COMEX and SD Bullion, are halting sales. They're pulling inventory off their websites. You will see out-of-stock buttons everywhere. Or worse, backorder, estimated ship in 6 weeks. 6 weeks is code for, we do not have this metal, and we are hoping we can find some before you sue us. Let me connect all of this together so you see the full picture. Samsung is buying 6 months of supply to keep factories running. Tesla is authorizing above-spot purchases to secure critical inventory. Chinese solar manufacturers are draining the Shanghai vaults. And retail dealers are charging $12 to $17 premiums just to let go of a single coin. This is a complete rejection of the paper price across every segment of the market. The entire world, from the billion-dollar CEO to the small stacker buying 1 ounce at a time, is voting with their wallet. And their vote says, silver is worth $85, not $75. The only entity that disagrees is the COMEX. And the COMEX is about to learn a very painful lesson about the difference between pricing power and delivery power. We have dissected the $74.6 billion emergency liquidity injection. We have traced the 112-ton inventory drain in Shanghai. We have documented the industrial panic and the retail premium explosion. But now we must stop looking backward and start looking forward. We are staring at the most dangerous 36 hours in the history of the silver market. Let me walk you through exactly what is going to happen, phase by phase, hour by hour. Right now, as I speak to you, we have less than 12 hours until global markets close for weekend. Shanghai Futures Exchange closes in hours. COMEX closes this afternoon. This is the final window of liquidity. This is the last chance for paper shorts to cover their positions before the rules change. And this is your last chance to secure physical metal before premiums explode again. If you're watching your screen tonight, do not be surprised if you see one final violent move. Banks might try to smash the price to $70 to trigger stop losses and shake out weak hands. Or they might capitulate and send it to $80 as they scramble to cover shorts. But the price does not matter. What matters is possession. Because once the closing bell rings tonight, the doors are locked. The train leaves the station. And if you're not on board with physical metal in your possession, you are left standing on the platform, watching the last car disappear into the distance. Tomorrow is Saturday, January 11th. Markets are closed. Screens are dark. The ticker is silent. But do not make the mistake of thinking nothing is happening. Saturday will be the most stressful day in the history of precious metals trading desks. While the public enjoys their weekend, risk managers at JP Morgan, at Citibank, at Goldman Sachs will be in emergency meetings. They will be staring at the 112-ton hole in the Shanghai vault. They will be staring at the 33 million ounces of delivery notices filed this week. And they will be realizing, when the sun rises Monday morning, they need to find millions of ounces of silver that simply does not exist in accessible inventory. Saturday is also the day when industrial panic goes into overdrive. This is when the CEO of Samsung calls the head of procurement and asks, "Did we secure the metal?" This is when Tesla executives conference call with refinery partners trying to lock in supply. This is when deals happen in the darkness. Off-exchange transactions, private negotiations, premiums that would make your head spin. We will not see these prices on chart, but we will feel them on Monday. Monday morning, January 13th. Markets reopen. The opening bell rings. And the market will have to reconcile the cognitive dissonance between the paper price and the physical reality. Here is my prediction for the opening seconds of trade on Monday morning. I believe we will see a gap up of historic proportions. The paper market in New York cannot open at $75 when the physical market in Shanghai is trading at $84 and delivery is mathematically impossible. The algorithm will try to close the gap instantly. We might see silver open at $78, then $80, then $82. It will try to teleport to the real price. The algos will frantically reprice every quote, every bid, every offer, try to find equilibrium in a market that no longer has equilibrium. But price is not the danger. The danger is force majeure. Watch the news carefully Monday morning. I believe we will start seeing notifications from smaller bullion dealers and possibly even some industrial suppliers declaring force majeure. This is a legal term meaning unforeseen circumstances prevent us from fulfilling our contract. It is a polite way of saying we are defaulting. These dealers will tell clients, "We cannot deliver your silver because China changed the export rules." They will offer cash settlement. They will say, "Here is your $75 back." But the client does not want $75. The client wants the metal that is now worth $85. This is when the class action lawsuits begin. This is when the paper market loses all credibility. This is when the fiction collapses under the weight of reality. And watch the premium spread. If the spread is $12 today, do not be shocked if it hits $15 or $20 on Monday. Why? Because while the paper price is trying to catch up, the physical price will run away from it. Dealers will go into no offer mode. You will call to buy silver, and they will say, "We have no inventory." Or they will say, "The price is spot plus 20. The spot price will become a museum exhibit, a number that exists only on a computer screen in New York completely divorced from the reality of buying and selling actual metal. We are witnessing the final wealth transfer. For 40 years, wealth has been stolen from physical holders by paper manipulators. They used leverage to suppress price and hide real value. But in the next 36 hours, gravity turns back on. China has removed the physical buffer. The Federal Reserve has exhausted the liquidity buffer. Industrial buyers have exhausted the inventory buffer. There are no buffers left. All that remains is the naked truth of supply and demand. And that truth is, there is not enough silver to meet the demand at $75. There is barely enough silver to meet demand at $85. And when that realization hits the market on Monday morning, the repricing will be violent, swift, and irreversible. This is my final message to you before the gap opens. Do not look at red candles and feel fear. Look at them and feel pity. Pity for the people selling real assets for paper currency that is being printed by the billions to cover banking insolvency. You're on the right side of this trade. You're holding the asset that Samsung needs, that Tesla needs, that China is hoarding. You're holding an asset that cannot be printed, cannot be hacked, and cannot be defaulted on. The era of paper silver ends tonight. The era of strategic silver begins Monday. The 36-hour countdown is running. Hold tight, stay safe, and prepare for the revaluation of your lifetime. This is your warning. This has been delivered. The timeline is set. I will see you on the other side of the gap. Like, subscribe, and share this video. The world needs to know what is happening. The clock is ticking, and time is almost up.